Welcome to the Q-SYS Deep Dive webinar series. Once again, hopefully you're a returning guest of ours. If not, welcome. This is our once a month or twice a month. We do a 1 hour webinar where we talk about various topics about Q-SYS. My name is Thomas Holt-Ronzi. I'm a senior applications engineer for the Northeast region of the United States. So my job is to handle design review, programming assistance, help pick out gear, help your customers learn. I also do regional training, so I might be coming to a local office near you to give out some jumpstart trainings, some other trainings that we do on things like Q-SYS Architect, or hopefully our upcoming Vision Suite trainings that will be coming out to an office near you. And I'm joined today by Terry Turner, who is one of our application engineers from Phoenix. So today we're going to be talking about our NV series endpoints, and we're going to be talking all about how to design those into your systems. So we'll cover the NV32, we'll cover the NV21, and we'll talk about the newest entry, the NV1 wall encoder. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, please punch those into the chat. Terry's going to be monitoring the chat, and he'll go ahead and interrupt me as necessary if we have a question that that needs answered in that moment. So before we get too deep into anything, just give a quick recap to the platform as a whole. If you missed our Activate in May or you didn't hit us at InfoComm, we are now talking about Q-SYS as a full stack AV platform. And what that means is that we've kind of stratified the entire Q-SYS ecosystem into three portions. So we have multimodal I/O, which is the physical hardware that you plug into the system, whether it's a Teams compute device, a Q-SYS core processor, an amplifier, a loudspeaker, those physical things that actually bring data into your system. We have our intelligent platform OS, which is, of course, Q-SYS OS, that's powered by Q-SYS Open, all of our industry standard protocols, the Dante capabilities, AES67, Lua, CSS, our Q-SYS plugins, as well as our open APIs that allow people to talk to Q-SYS as well as control other parts of your ecosystem. And then sitting on top of that is our cognitive cloud, which is our Q-SYS Reflect platform, which is monitoring everything that you plug into Q-SYS in real time and giving that information out through the Reflect API. So you can plug that into your own ecosystem. If you have your own pane of glass, if you're a dealer that runs a service department and you have your own style, then you can pull that data out through Reflect. And of course, on the top right, we have our Q-SYS partners. So those are, your Google, your Zoom, your Dell, Audio-Technica, Sennheiser, Shure, those partners who are creating plugins and helping us enhance the ecosystem and give more control over that data. But today we're going to be talking about our multimodal I/O, specifically our video devices like the NV32. So the NV32 recently got another update to its capabilities, and that's the core mode video streaming license. So a lot of people were familiar with the NV32's base capabilities. It can operate as either a core or as a peripheral. And in core mode, it gives you the ability to add native HDMI distribution to your system. You plug in inputs, you get outputs. It's local switching, so you can bring that into a very small space, small to medium space. It's only 3 inputs, 2 outputs. Bring that in, manage a bunch of other existing network video devices, and control all of those inside of your system. And just, looking through, you have a local video switcher, you have 3 HDMI inputs, 2 outputs, a USB Type-B 3.1 Gen 2 connection for your web conference integration. So that's AV bridging, that's bringing the audio out to a connected computer, the cameras, just like you're seeing here right now. Also, two 3.5 millimeter jacks. One is an audio input, one's an audio output. These are both line level, and all of the they are stereo feeds, but the way they come into Q-SYS is two mono sources. So you can either sum those to create a stereo 3.5 millimeter input, or you can have them broken out as two independent lines. We also have an assortment of physical I/O. So we have 3 GPOs and 2 GPI inputs, as well as an RS-232 connection for controlling a display or talking to a projector. There is also a 12-volt direct feed, so if you need to power something like table buttons, you can do that. And then 2 network ports, so both of these are Cat5. The first one, the LAN A port, also allows for you to power the NV32. It is PoE 802.3 Type 4, which means that is 90-watt PoE or PoE++ or Ultra PoE. I prefer the 802 designations because you can go and find a chart and you can find Type 4 and it tells you exactly what the wattage is. There's also an external power input that takes 48-volt DC, 1.5 amp, so you can grab any power supply off the shelf and power that directly if you don't want to rely on a network switch for PoE distribution. And then those 4 USB-A connections on the back are for HID integration, or you can plug in a small audio interface and you can bring up to 2 channels in, 2 channels out into the NV32. So all of this video and audio and control is routable inside of Q-SYS. You can actually bring all of those channels in, break them out, do whatever processing you need to do, and then send them back out. The HDMI inputs, each one can carry up to 8 channels in and 8 channels out of PCM audio. So not Dolby, just PCM. And you can also inject signal
Hey,
into that.
Thomas.
So yeah, sir.
The
Yes.
question, it can't be powered off PoE alone, correct?
It can be powered off PoE alone. So if you have enough PoE budget and a switch that supports Ultra PoE or PoE 802.3 Type 4, so it has to support that 90 watts of throughput, but you can power it off of PoE alone. And now I'll have to digress back in.
Sorry.
No, you're good. That was perfect opportunity to catch me there. So you can also, if you want to provide audio out of those HDMI channels, you can actually inject audio into the HDMI feed and displace whatever audio was being provided by the source with your own. So if you have TVs distributed around an office space and you want to send audio to the TV to use its built-in speakers, or maybe a Toslink or optical connected soundbar, you can use the Q-SYS audio system to distribute audio that way as well. So that's in core mode. In peripheral mode, you can have the NV32 set as either an encoder, which means it will take its 3 inputs and encode those up to the network where they can be decoded by any other NV device. And we also give you a local source. So this example we're showing here has 3 1080p sources, as well as a confidence monitor for our local inputs. So we can, maybe this is in a lectern and we have a confidence monitor right in front of us so that we can see what we're talking about, kind of like I have here off to the side. And then, or you can decode one of those at a time and you can have full 4K 60 content. You can also use the NV32. That same NV32 could be set up as a decoder. And in this mode, it can decode any source up to 4K 60 444 from the network at a time. You can also set it as a dual output. In dual output mode, it will decode 2 1080p sources. So you do lose the ability to do full 4K. I know this example shows 4K 60 on both of those outputs, but it decodes 1080p in dual display mode.
We got some questions.
Awesome. Bring it on.
Can we get balanced audio I/O?
So yes. So yeah, on the inputs and the outputs, they come in as 2 discrete channels, but if you sum them, they will behave as balanced audio. And you can wire them as balanced audio.
Cool. Question 2. So if we're using an NV32 in our setup, can we skip the QSCIO bridge to get audio from the Core 24F?
Yes. Yeah. So the NV32, that USB port, actually, let me turn on my annotation here. So this USB port here is an IO bridge. So that's an IO USB built into the NV32. In fact, it's has a higher bandwidth than the IO USB since it's USB 3.0 and not USB 2.0. Any Q-SYS core or any NV32 or NV21 can carry that AV bridging signal. In fact, you can also carry that AV bridging signal over the touch panels, which have their own license for doing that.
Cool. Is it possible to route those NV32 HDMI inputs to the USB video bridge? I'm
No,
assuming meaning internally.
yeah, so our HDMI, and we'll actually talk about it later in this deck, but our HDMI signals use a codec called Shift to transport those over the network, but our USB traffic uses what's called MediaCast. So they're two different codecs, and they do not have interoperability at this time. Hopefully, in the future, that's something we'll explore adding, but right now you cannot take those HDMI signals and route them to that USB connection or to any USB connection.
Can we switch between encoder and decoder using commands, and will it keep the configuration?
So it does need to be configured for a specific usage. There are a couple of ways to change its configuration. You can go into Core Manager and just change its mode, and that's the way that most people are doing it. The way I would recommend doing it for a runtime system, so if you wanted to have an NV32 on your shelf in your shop and just take it out to, say, a specific conference room and plug it in at a location and have it perform as an encoder or a decoder, depending on which network jack, then you're going to want to utilize a feature that we have called dynamic pairing. And what dynamic pairing does is it allows you to configure the operation of a specific Q-SYS peripheral based on what network port the core detects that peripheral on. So you actually pair a, a network port to a specific operation inside of Q-SYS. I believe we have a webinar talking about dynamic pairing. A little bit more and how to set it up and configure it. But if not, feel free to leave your email and send your email to Terry and I can, or reach out to, let's see, I'll put my email in the chat here at the end and feel free to email me directly and I can tell you more about dynamic pairing because it's a really cool feature that we don't get to talk about as much because it's very specific in what its usage is.
We got a couple more.
Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned the capability to plug in a USB interface into the USB-A ports on the NV32. Do you have a list of supported interfaces? Also, is this capability exclusive to the NV32, or could you use the USB-A ports on, say, the Core Nano to move two channels of inputs outputs?
So that's a great question. So we don't have a list of supported audio interfaces, but what we do have is I can say for certain that any plug and play audio interface, and what that means is it's driver free. So it does not require installing a driver. Any plug and play audio interface will work with Q-SYS. In fact, I have a universal audio Volt that's plugged into an NV32, and that's actually what you're hearing me on right now. So I'm utilizing that feature on an NV32. This works with any Q-SYS core that has those USB-A ports on the back. There is a property inside of Q-SYS that allows you to enable the use of an external audio interface. Depending on the core, will determine how many channels you can get out of that. And there is a table with those channel counts inside of our help guide. By the way, qsyshelp.qsc.com if you ever want to go find the help documentation.
Cool. Can you share more info to skip the QSC IO bridge with the touch panels, and are there licenses to it?
So with the touch panel, you can bring that AV bridge out of the touch panel. There's a USB-C on the connection on the back of the TSC 70G3 and the TSC 101G3. Those are the only two that support it. And there is a license. It's called the AV streaming license. And that is per touch panel. So you would need it per touch panel connection. But once you enable that inside of Q-SYS and you add the license, you'll be able to you'll see a connection on your touch panel that allows you to bring in a block for the USB video bridge and the USB audio bridges.
That's also on the NV32 as well, right? You need a license for USB bridging.
No, the NV32 it comes built in. The NV21 used to have it as an
Hmm.
optional add-on license, but we got rid of that and packaged it in as well. So the NV21 and the NV32, the AV bridge is built in.
Last one.
Yeah.
Does HID work with touch panel displays? Does HID require a second connection through USB-A port, or can it be utilized over USB-B port along with conferencing peripherals?
That's a couple questions there. So I'll break them out
Yeah.
one at a time. So we'll start with the touch panel. So the USB-A ports, what those support is they support basic HID table integration. So what that means is keyboards, video, touchscreen monitors. So you can support third-party touch panels with this. And the external audio interface is specifically to, in the case of the NV32, it's any of those USB-A ports. On, say, a Core 110, you would be looking for the blue USB 3.1 port for the audio interface capability, but that works on any core. The where that terminates on the other side of a Q-SYS connection. So if I plug a touch panel into that USB-A port or a keyboard video mouse, a USB dongle with a keyboard and a mouse plugged into it, that gets added to, there's a block in there called the USB input block, and it'll show you all of your connected devices. And it has a special USB routing pin that you can drag over to any other USB output pin on any other Q-SYS USB-A HID device or AV bridge device. And where that comes out is actually on that USB-B type connection. So that would terminate here if you were just connecting it to the NV32. If you were transmitting it, the power of this is that you can transmit that over the Q-SYS network. So I could bring that in on this NV32, and then I could have it come out at, say, a Core 24 in the rack where there is a room PC set up with all of its connections there. And now I can extend and I can hub all of those devices from multiple places into one. I can also dynamically route those USB signals around inside of Q-SYS. This makes Q-SYS a really powerful USB extender, because instead of having to worry about, do I have enough ports on my extender, or do I have the right extender to carry the distance? You can plug those into Q-SYS, and then the length limitation is your category 5 limitation and your network hops, because you're just encoding that signal into Q-SYS traffic, sending it out, and then on the other end, Q-SYS decodes it and brings it back out as USB data. All right, so we have talked quite a bit about the various things you can do with the NV32. One thing that I would like to also mention is that when you open this up inside of Q-SYS, it comes with pre-built video routing blocks for you. So it's all drag and drop programming for video distribution. If you want to bring in another display, there's just a block called a generic HDMI source. You add one, you connect it to your NV32's HDMI IO block, and then the NV32 feeds that information from the HDMI signal back to the source block So you get information like EDID, you get information like hot plug and valid format and HDCP detection. And you can bring that into the Q-SYS ecosystem, control all of it really easily. It has pre-baked routing buttons for you, so all of your switching can get dragged straight onto your UCI without having to do any complex programming for anything anywhere content. And all of that is powered by the Q-SYS Shift video codec. So I mentioned this before that, we have Q-SYS Shift, which is our video codec for our network video streaming, and then we have MediaCast, which is for our camera and audio streaming. So Q-SYS Shift is special because it's adaptive video compression. And what that means is that it's analyzing and monitoring the changes to your network, to the network frame buffer. So every time an image comes across, whether it's a PowerPoint or a full motion video, it's monitoring how much change there is from frame to frame, and it's dynamically adjusting bandwidth consumption based on how much is needed. So what that means is that if we're looking at a PowerPoint like we are today, we're using less bandwidth on the network than if I was, screening a movie to a theater where I need every pixel to change very, very quickly. And what that means is that we can get even more network streams onto our network for, something like a high density office space where we want a fairly flat network to, handle overflow spaces and auditoriums. We can have even more NV devices on there than normal if we were just using a standard JPEG 2000 codec. And, we talked about video distribution. The USB-B connects out to a laptop. So if you wanted your BYOM, it's just a single device that handles all of that ingest from that laptop into the Q-SYS system to send it up to where you need it. And here's just a little bit more of some nice text to kind of outline all of that. Native functionality, BYOD web conferencing. You're consolidating gear, so that's helping just to ease the design aspect of everything. And so that's most of peripheral mode. In core mode, you've got all of the same power of a Core Nano. So you have a full feature DSP, you have a 32 by 32 network audio channel count. So it's 32 ins, 32 outs, over 16 streams. You get 8 AEC channels. You get a VoIP instance. So you can register this with a soft phone so that you can have people call into the conference room. You have all your audio IO, you have web conferencing integrations, all of the power of a small Q-SYS core in a small device.
So, question of, do we have USB-C connections on the horizon? I'm assuming for the NV series.
So the NV21 does. The NV32 does not, and it probably will not for the foreseeable future. And the NV1 does not. So we'll talk about our USB-C connectivity a little bit later when we get to the NV21. But at this time, that's the only device that has USB-C. So this slide is a little outdated, but there are some additional licenses that you can apply to an NV32 in core mode, specifically software-based Dante. You can have up to 32 channel or 16 channels of software-based Dante. You can add Q-SYS Reflect to it. There's a free tier. There is also a plus tier. So the UCI deployment license and the UCI and the Q-SYS scripting engine license, as of version 10.0, we got rid of those licenses. They do not exist anymore. And in fact, if you go onto our knowledge base, that's support.qsys.com, you can actually find a license key that will give you those licenses if you're running version 9.13.1 LTS or an older version of Q-SYS going back to version 7.2 when we added licenses, when we brought that in. So We've gotten rid of those licenses. We've backdated that as well. So please make sure if you've got customers who are deploying LTS systems, make sure you get that license key so you don't need to go and figure out those how to do it with control functions. You can get scripting, you can get UCI deployment for free. Um, mentioned reflect, mentioned BYOD capability. Here is a nice handy chart. So this is your moment to take a quick screenshot of all of the features of core mode versus all of the features of specific peripheral modes. This is also on the website. If you go to Q-SYS.com and you find the NV series homepage, this shows up there as well, and you can see all of the differences between core mode and peripheral mode, so you can help decide if it's the right thing for your project. Um, but we have one more feature for the NV32, and that is the video streaming license. So the video streaming license, if you add this to an NV32 that is running in core mode, then you get the ability to have that Q-SYS core, but also have it function as either an encoder or a decoder. It's one or the other. It cannot simultaneously encode and decode. Uh, but that gives you the capability to have a core and also use that core to encode a bunch of sources to the network. Again, room PCs, wireless sharing devices that might be rack bound. You can have those encoded to the network and then decoded from a device behind the display, so you can simplify your video routing.
Got a question here that
Yeah.
might need a little bit more clarification. Says, is there an age of the NV32 where the additional processing headroom kicked in?
So no. Every NV32 is capable of doing this. This came as a software update. So we actually were able to through software development, we were able to churn out a few more features, optimizing things on the FPGA engine that does the video encoding and decoding, so we could actually get that power back.
Cool. One
So,
more.
oh,
Oh,
yep,
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay. Does the USB HID connection allow for a bring your own device with a third party device such as Logitech Rally Bar? Example of NV32 at the table that a user could plug HDMI USB into a laptop and a 21 at the display that connects USB to the Rally Bar, HDMI USB to the Rally Bar.
Hypothetically, if the USB device connected is plug and play capable and that external audio interface is turned on, then I don't see why you wouldn't be able to send that simple two-channel audio stream to a device like a USB connected soundbar. I can't speak to whether the Rally Bar is certified to handle that, either from Logitech's side or from our side. I have not tried it. So I give this to you with, caution of, if you have the ability to shop test that, go ahead and shop test it. If it works for you, that is awesome. And I'd love to see more people finding these creative solutions to getting audio where they need it. But I can't confirm or deny that that would work. So continuing on, we
There,
have oh, do we,
sorry, there's a follow-up. Each USB input capable of QSYS art device acts as a hub, which is then routable, correct?
yes.
Not each individual USB on the same device are independent.
All of the USB ports are routed into a single bus, so they are hubbed. They are not independently routable.
Yeah, and I'm answering some offline too, so
Okay, perfect.
yep.
I am going to continue on, but we will stay around for a few minutes at the end to answer a lot more questions. I will continue taking some questions for the NV21 and the NV1 as we get to them, but save your NV32 questions for the end at this point. So continuing on, we have the little brother of the NV32. So one I didn't mention is the NV nomenclature is very simple and easy to use. So NV stands for network video. The first number, so in this case, 2, is the number of inputs. The second number is the number of outputs. So the NV21 is 2 inputs, 1 output. The NV32 is 3 inputs, 2 outputs. And then the letters after that denote whether it's HDMI or HDMI and USB. So the NV21HU is an HDMI and USB-C capable device. The NV32H is an HDMI only device. So that gives you a little bit more of the, that's the decoder ring for how our naming schemes work. But the NV21 is meant to be a miniature version of the NV32 with a little less horsepower. It doesn't need it doesn't need core mode. It doesn't need all the extra capability of a 3x2 switcher. It just needs to be a small, lightweight Q-SYS encoder decoder to get you the right inputs where you need it. And to that end, it has one HDMI input, one HDMI output, so it does still support that local source outputting. It also has a USB-C connection. That USB-C connection can do AV bridging. It can do content ingest. It can do device charging. So if you are powering this off of that external DC input, so that's 12 volt, 8 amps, we have an NV21 power supply or NV21 PSU that you can purchase from us that will power this directly, or you can power that off of PoE. If you are using the auxiliary power, you can get up to 60 watts of power charging off that USB-C connection or USB-C PD. Um, we also have an RS-232 port that you can use to control a third-party device like a TV or a projector. And then we have a single USB-A port for that HID distribution. And again, the USB-C connection is meant to be a single connection for all of your capabilities, that true one cable solution at the table. Customer just walks in with a laptop or you have a room PC and you just have one cable that gets you there and gets the job done. If you're using the HDMI input and you're not using the USB-C, that USB-C is still your bridging connection. And like we mentioned, the NV21 is software definable as an encoder or decoder. The same rules apply as the NV32. So to change that mode, you go into Core Manager to the utilities page and you select which one, and it does reboot the device. So in HDMI mode, the HDMI input can get up to 4K 6444 and encode that or decode it to the network. The USB-C connection brings in your AV bridge and your device charging, and then that HDMI output is your confidence monitor or your decoder output. In USB-C mode, it can take in that a DisplayPort alt mode video feed. So that's up to 4K 6444, and the bridging happens on the same connection, and then you still get access to that HDMI output for your confidence monitor. So, and there's just a size comparison just to show you the relative size between the two. The NV21 is about 2/3 the size. It is not a full. It does not come in rack dimensions, which means that it's not going to just have rack ears on it that you can install it in a network closet. It does come with wings so that you can mount it to the underside of a table or to the wall behind a display. It is small, it's lightweight, it's maybe like 1 or 2 pounds. And then finally, we have the NV1HWE. So again, NV, network video, one, so it's one channel. It's an HDMI, and it's a wall plate encoder. So WE stands for wall plate encoder. This is an input only, so it's only an encoder mode. And it has an HDMI on the front, 4K 60 input to the network. It has an LED on the front that's dimmable, so you can program that and control that based, if you want to if you wanted to use that to synchronize it to valid format, so it turns off when no content's plugged in, but when a laptop's plugged in and it gets HDCP, you can turn the light on to show the user that you have content there. And then it's a single LAN port, so it's type 2, so it's 30 watts of PoE. So the NV21, for instance, is 45 watts. So the NV1 is 30, NV21 is 45, and the NV32 is 90 watts. So there's the one slide that shows you everything that uh, all of these do on a single page. Gives you a little bit of an idea of which one you need to pick for each project. And all of these are meant to live inside of the Q-SYS ecosystem. That does mean you need a Q-SYS core to control them. The Q-SYS core manages the subscriptions between all of the NV devices so that we can control them easily. But now let's go ahead and take a look at some actual installations. So this is a small conference room. It's a there's a credenza underneath our display that's got our NV32 running in core mode. We have an SPA-Q amplifier that is powering two 80 series loudspeakers. We've got a room PC, we've got a wireless connection, and we've got some laptops at the table so that we can encode those back to the network, and then our Q-SYS core is decoding that at the display. And then we've got a couple of cameras that are being fed. Maybe we're using, since we got NMT1s in here, maybe we're using ACPR in this system, automatic camera preset recall, to point the correct camera at the correct person when somebody's talking. We've also got some front row speakers here, the Acoustic Design Series loudspeakers. And this is a small, it looks like it's a 12, 15 person small training room that we can use that for. We've also got a restaurant here. So when you have a larger scaled design, you can actually bring in a lot more devices. So this is a Core 8 Flex, so this gives us a little bit more control over peripherals. Maybe we added the scaling license here so that we could have even more peripherals in this restaurant. We've got a bunch of decoders out at each display. It looks like each one is carrying HDMI as well as an RS-232 connection to control that display. Maybe this is a sports bar, a specific really good wings restaurant. Um, We've also got two NV32s in the rack that are encoding cable boxes. So we don't need to put the cable box out by the TV now. We can put those back in the rack where they can be managed in one place. Nobody's got to climb up on a ladder just to, reprogram the cable box when they need to swap it out. And we've got a CXQ amplifier here doing our audio distribution across the facility, and then an NV1 plugged into the side so that we can have a pop-up. Maybe they've got a trivia night that they do, and somebody needs to plug a laptop in to take over the displays. All right, so that's all I've got. So I'm gonna stick around for me and Terry are gonna stick around for about 20 minutes here, and we'll answer some questions. Anything you guys have, I'm happy to answer. But thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you next time.
So there's some questions that I've been trying to work through these as you were going. Do you want to answer those now?
Absolutely.
Webinar be available for viewing later?
Yes, the webinars typically get emailed out. I believe the PDF gets emailed out, and the recording should get emailed out as well, so that you can view this back at your own pace. I know sometimes I talk pretty fast, but you can go back and watch that and hit the 0.5x on it and slow it way down.
If a laptop is connected to the USB port on the NV21, it could send video to a display, receive USB peripherals, and receive charging all at the same time.
That is correct.
Cool. We don't need core functionality. Can we go for only an NV21 for encoder and decoder?
So the NV21 does need, you do need a Q-SYS core to manage the network subscriptions. So to manage that video traffic back and forth, you do need a Q-SYS core. You can't set the NV21s in point-to-point mode. They don't, that doesn't exist.
Do you know if there's any plans for like an output or a decoder equivalent of the NV1H?
So we have
Or yeah.
this is a question that comes up quite frequently. So there are not a lot of AV over IP, true AV over IP decoders on the market. As far as I'm aware, there's only one or two, and they're in flat box form. They're not in wall plate form. Um, we have no plans right now to do a wall plate decoder because there are concerns about heat exhaust. So when
Hmm.
you decode, it generates a lot more heat than encoding a signal to the network. And the concern is where you dump that heat. So right now we don't have any plans to, but every time that gets brought up, we do take it to our product management team, and they will bring that bring that information in, and they'll see, if we have to make a 5 gang decoder that fits in a wall so that we have room to exhaust that heat out from the back of it, then maybe we'll do that in the future.
And I'm assuming that's the heat is the same thing for like why we don't do a single gang box. We're trying to alleviate heat as much as possible.
That's correct.
Cool.
Yeah, heat is the primary concern when you're installing something in a wall.
Uh, in encoder mode on the NV32, do we get three independent routable video streams? So you could route the three sources to three decoders at the same time.
Yes. So let me get back up to my. So where is my encoder? So when the NV32 is set up as an encoder, there are two ways you can use it. So if you can decode those three inputs anywhere simultaneously. So, I have a 1080p 60 PowerPoint, and I can, each of these three sources can go to three separate decoders, and that works just fine. They'll all be 1080p. If those sources are 4K, I can pick one of those off at a time at full 4K. If I grab more than one of those at a different decoder, so say I have a PowerPoint and I have a Teams meeting, or a motion video on input 2. As soon as I route both of those to different decoders, the decoders automatically scale them to 1080p. So they automatically scale down. It happens inside of the encoder box, so the customer doesn't see the difference unless somebody's up there pixel peeping. They'll see that it's not a 4K 60 signal anymore, it's 1080p. But it does a pretty good job, and I typically don't notice unless I'm really trying to eye that up. So you can use it seamlessly to split those signals to three signals simultaneously decoded anywhere, and the NV32 will handle it.
With USB charging, do you need the power supply or is PoE good enough?
So you do need the power supply for the NV21 power distribution connection. So the USB-C PD on the NV21 is up to 60 watts. The PoE connection only provides 45. So we need
Mm,
that power to run the NV21. The auxiliary power supply provides 96 watts of power. So that gives us the power to both run the unit as well as provide that power distribution downstream.
will we allow the MediaCast camera image out the NV21 in the future?
It is we are looking at it. It's something we want to do. It's right now I don't believe it's on the roadmap at this time, but it is something we want to do in the future.
Um, NV1 is a encoder only, correct?
NV1 is an encoder only.
Okay.
We do not have a decoder wall plate at this time.
Uh, can NV21 decode camera video to HDMI? I need to overflow cameras to a lobby display. And I don't want to put an NV32. And I think we answered that one. Yes, we can.
Yeah. So what those two questions are referring to is the NV32 has the ability to decode a MediaCast stream to HDMI and output it out of HDMI 1. The NV21 does not have this functionality. Again, that's something we want to do in the future, but we have to. It'll take some software development hours to get that functionality added to the NV21.
Uh, any plans for rack chassis for larger deployments?
Not at this time, but I will mention that to the product management team for our video products. I'll bring that up as a product request.
There are plans to implement fiber onto this hardware, which would be cool.
Not at this time. There are limitations to fiber as far as handling multicast, and how multicast traffic is delivered over fiber. I've I don't believe there's anything in the roadmap right now, but I will certainly ask, and because I'd be interested to know that as well.
Ooh. And then people are asking for our email, and somebody asked for the dynamic pairing. If there's a link to that.
Oh yes. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my email in the chat. So
Yeah, I got to put mine in there as well.
there we go. And then give me one moment, and I will locate a. Let's see.
That one's done. There's a couple in here. Eric, if you're still on, can you be a little bit more specific with your switch setting? I'm assuming you're talking about the NV32 and if what the switch settings are for that. Could I suggest what are the more important settings if we have an existing switch on an M4250, which is a Netgear? Um, I would say some of the most important ones are uh oh, now I'm drawing a blank.
So IGMP
Yes.
snooping has to be on. Also, your multicast querier has to be configured correctly. So if you have multiple switches, you have to make sure that only one querier is active on the network, and the other switches downstream are forwarding their multicast traffic up to the primary switch for querying and routing. Those two are the biggest ones. Making sure that your VLANs are set up correctly. You also want to make sure that your QoS table is configured correctly. So QoS for Q-SYS and Dante use the same QoS table, and there is actually a preset inside of Q-SYS Designer under the design preferences or design properties that allows you to switch our QoS settings from the standard Q-SYS ones to ones that will prefer Dante over Q-SYS. Dante has specific requirements that means it needs to take higher priority in the QoS table. Um, I have gone ahead and posted a link to where's my Q&A. So everybody should see my email in the chat now, and as well as Terry's email. as well as a link to our Q-SYS help documentation. I am still looking to see if I have a webinar on if I have a specific webinar on dynamic pairings. If not, I will we do I will talk with our webinar team and maybe we will have we'll go ahead and write one for you to do a deep dive on webinar on dynamic pairing.
Uh,
So if you want to see all of our on-demand, all of the ones that we've previously recorded, if you go to the link I just posted, which is qsys.com/resources/webinars, that's where you can find all of the upcoming ones that we're going to do in the future. So the next one coming up is a Q-SYS escape room programming session where we're going to talk through all of the logic that we use to build the Q-SYS escape room at our Infocom show, the most recent one. After that, we are going to be doing a UCI tools webinar, so how to build and use CSS templates. And then, and I'm sorry, those two happened already. I'm reading the upcomings, and for some reason, it's showing me the old ones. The next one is going to be on Q-SYS and the PL series loudspeakers. So designing for PL series is coming up next. You can also see on-demand ones. So on-demand webinars that we've previously recorded. Most recently, we did a higher education discussion panel for large volume learning and event spaces. We did a designing for Q-SYS Vision Suite, which is a really good one. We also have all of our activates that are there. You can watch this. You can watch a deep dive on this one as well. So we have a recording of this already up on there. We have deep dives on various things like core-to-core communication, UCI styling, building your own Lua modules, as well as a lot of different topics in there. So there's a lot of stuff to dive in and see. A lot of information to grab. And let's see, do we have more questions? Oh, there's our Q&A.
yeah, there's a couple in here. Andrew wants the flat box decoder.
I'll I'll certainly pass that request on. Okay. So Roger asked about our SMPTE 2110 support. So SMPTE 2110 support is through our core processors. So all of the core processors now have an NMOS driver built into them, and inside of our Q-SYS inventory under our streaming I/O, there is a SMPTE 2110 transmitter as well as a
Oops.
SMPTE 2110 receiver. Bringing those into our device, into your schematic, will turn on the NMOS driver and make those visible on the network, but we don't have a specific SMPTE 2110 appliance.
Eric, if you're still here, I posted the help file for networking switches and infrastructure in the chat, so that should work, help you out.
All right, well, let's see. We got a couple thanks coming in. We'll go ahead and hang out for a couple more minutes and see if there's any other questions. But again, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, starting to see that number dwindle down, but we still got a few of you in here.
Stephen, you're very welcome. Hopefully we answered all your questions.
Go ahead and stop the share now, and everybody can just see.
See you. I should probably turn on my
Yes,
cameras
yeah,
so
you
that
can.
you're not the only one.
We can bring Terry back to the stage for a few
Right.
minutes.
I'm not
Looks
gonna
like we
do
are.
Do a little dance.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we're getting down to the last few people. Once it dips below 10, I'm going to go ahead and end the session. So thank you guys all for coming. My name's Thomas Holt Ronzi. This is Terry, Terry Turner. Sorry, just the eponymous Terry.
Yeah.
We only the notorious Terry.
Yeah.
We have one Terry. We only can have one.
Dan calls me typical Terry.
Yes. Yeah, at this point, I think if there's no other questions, it is going to devolve into exclusively dad jokes. Um, we'll get Dan on the call, and although he does the uncle joke, which is rarer and sometimes more cringeworthy. Uh,
Right?
all right, guys, thank you very much. Have a great week. Have a good one, and this is both of us signing off.
See ya.